Welcome, everyone. And tonight we discuss Donald Trump has to tell the Supreme Court and district judges, go pound sand. You knew it was coming, and now we are here. We are at a constitutional crisis. I've been talking about it for more than 4 weeks. District judge after district judge. It's clear that the Democrats, Congress, have gotten together with special interest groups and they are shopping Obama appointed and Biden appointed judges throughout the country and filing lawsuits in those specific districts. And these rogue district judges are attempting now to restrain and control the executive branch. And these are district judges. Many of them don't have a lot of experience as judges, and still they're making these crazy decisions to restrict Donald Trump from effectively executing his decisions and responsibilities as the executive branch. We're going to go in now and have, thanks to Stephen Miller, Stephen Gardner, we're going to pull this clip up with J.J. Carell. And this guy is a former Border Patrol agent, and he has some brilliant insights that seem to corroborate what I've been saying for a long time. So here we go. And
Trump, I don't know why we continue to trust this guy, but why? Do you have any understanding on why we're not just bringing soldiers home from overseas and saying, we're now putting you to work on cleaning up America?
I think because we have a corrupt government. And this is not just, look, I understand Donald Trump saying, I'm the biggest MAGA guy you're going to meet. I'm the biggest cheerleader for his cabinet. I love those people. I think they're doing a great job. However, we have thousands of administrative deep staters that are sabotaging, judges that are sabotaging everything we're doing. I believe we're in a constitutional crisis where the president, the executive, has to say to the judicial branch, stand down. I appreciate your opinion and whatever you're saying, but I'm not following you. I'm the executive. I'm going to be an executive, and I'm going to force my executive actions onto America because we are in a war for the soul of America. Not a fight. We're in a war for it. And if Donald Trump needs to take that stance, if you will, that, hey, you know what? We're tired of defending Europe. For God's sake, can we all just stop for a second and realize that America has never been this vulnerable? Name me quickly one civilization throughout the history of mankind that has undertaken this percentage of demographic upheaval and survived, and the answer is none. The greatest empires, Rome, Greece, the Ottoman Empire, they collapsed. They got too big like we did, and they had all these foreigners come in that have no allegiance. And don't be mistaken by the lie from the Republicans for George W. Bush all the way through Obama and Biden that all these people want to be Americans. They love America. They hate America. I wrote that in my book, Invaded, and I wrote it again in Treason. And I show you openly, they're not here to produce and be Americans. They're here to take. Why do you think inflation is skyrocketing? Why do you think all the social services in the big cities have deteriorated to nothing? Why are small towns being overrun? I write in my book multiple times the hollowing out of it. I just did a whole chapter on the hollowing out of the small towns. You have small towns that have had their total population replaced by illegal aliens. They're
But now in the lower courts, one guy.
okay, that is one excerpt. Let's fast forward ahead to this next one.
Nothing to enforce anything you're doing. I, the executive.
Okay, and this is great.
Morning that Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, he was on the news. He said, one thing that gives him hope is that they were able to put 235 judges on the bench under Biden, and that they are blocking Trump time after time after time. He had this big gleeful smile. Mm-hmm. Is this not like coordinated plan a coordinated use of lawfare against a sitting president?
I absolutely agree with that. Tell me one thing that Donald Trump's doing that you would oppose to. The judges and the Democrats actually don't want Donald Trump removing criminal murderers and rapists into a prison in El Salvador. They would rather them come back to America, and release them into our society. If you don't understand that the federal government is the enemy of the people, I don't know what to tell you. And I believe, again, we are sitting in a constitutional crisis. When historians look back on this, they're going to say it's not a month from now. They're going to say it started on the first day Donald Trump took office, and we are now in a constitutional crisis where Donald Trump's going to have to make the statement, I'm the executive and I'm following through. And do what Andrew Jackson said. Andrew Jackson told the Supreme Court, when the Supreme Court said you need to give back all the lands in Georgia back to the Cherokees, it is reported that Andrew Jackson, the president, said, thank you very much. Now go pound sand and try to enforce that. You men in your black robes don't have any law enforcement. You have no military. You have nothing to enforce anything you're doing. I, the executive, have the military. I have the law. It's in my side of the court. Our founding fathers never envisioned that district court judges would have more power than the president of the United States. It's absurd on the face. And we need to, the idea, Americans, maybe this is the best way. Americans, for whatever reason, believe that the current situation is what has always been. And that's a lie. The courts, the power of the courts have never been like this except for the present day. We've had our founding fathers created the executive and the legislative to have oversight and the ability to remove judges. That tells you everything you need to know. If you had to make a list of the three branches of government and who has the most power, you would take the judicial branch and put them under the executive and legislative. They're not on top. Somehow they've got to the top, and we're all bowing down to the Supreme Court as if they are some intellectual giants. Oh my God, can we go through at least 6 of them and think they're absolutely the biggest bozos on planet Earth, and they're running our country?
Yeah. Two things that came out this week that I thought were interesting. Stephen Miller, advisor to President Trump, said, even in the Supreme Court, you have to have 5 people agree to shut down a president. But now in the lower courts, one guy who no one's ever heard of, that doesn't have a lot of experience as a judge, has made him or herself more powerful than the president of the United States. Then President Trump said, how come we always know how the 4 liberal judges will rule, but we never know how the 5 conservative judges will rule? Your thoughts on those comments?
I think Stephen Miller is a genius. I really do. And he shuts down the left constantly, and he makes incredible points that are just common sense. It just takes one rogue judge that we don't even know about. Some dude in Nevada or Maine or Washington, D.C. just randomly pops up and says, nope, you can't do that. And everybody goes, oh my gosh, we got to listen to that guy. And you're like, well, who is that guy? Could you spell his name for me? No, I don't know how to spell Boasberg. You're right. But he's running our country. But I would like to push back on Donald Trump. Sir, you picked 3 of these Supreme Court justices. Amy, you couldn't figure someone out besides Miss Amy to be the Supreme Court justice? Why did you choose her? I would like to have that question. She seems like she's a leftist in the way that she rules. And if we're really going to be honest in this discussion about Supreme Court justice, there has to be some type of investigation on what the hell happened to Roberts. What happened to him? Who got to him? He's compromised. Anybody in law enforcement, in intel, anybody can see just from his writings and then him changing 180 degrees on his writings, like within 24 hours, that the man's compromised. We are rotten to the core, and I believe in our government. I believe Doge is uncovering it, and I think that even though...
Okay, so as I've been saying for the last 4 to 5 weeks, it's time for Donald Trump to show that he has some King Kong balls and stand up to these and tell these district judges, like, shut up, go pound sand. You can't do anything. And, he's already been impeached twice and stuff like this. And over the last 30 years, Supreme Court judges have assumed too much authority by implicitly stating that their interpretation of the law is what the law is. And they've usurped the power from the legislative branch, the Senate, and the House of Representatives, as well as the executive branch. It's time for Donald Trump to go back to the 1800s in the way the presidents were running the country and interacting with the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has no military, no army, no authority at all except interpretation. And even with the Supreme Court on this latest thing, and one judge telling Trump that he needs to reinstate all of the USAID employees. He needs to tell them, you can't tell me what I need to do. Okay, that is not your authority. You've overstepped your bounds. How many people I cut, how I balanced the budget, and how I cut savings for this country is none of the Supreme Court justice. No federal judge has the authority to tell the executive branch who they can fire and who they cannot, how they run their administration, how they run the country, how they execute their decisions in the interpretation of the law by the legislative branch. And it's time right now. Like, there's no more playing around. Donald Trump has to openly defy the remaining decisions and run the country the way he believes he should. And that's it. I'm not going to go any further today. It's clear that we have corrupt judges that need to be replaced. It's clear that a lot of Republican Supreme Court justices, specifically Roberts and Amy, Donald Trump put Amy up there, so he needs to pull her out right now. Okay, but it's clear that Justice Roberts and Amy, what is the Supreme? Let's get all of their names. Let's get who's in the Supreme Court. Okay. So let's find out who are the current 9 justices. Okay. Justice John Roberts is the chief, and he clearly is compromised. Clarence Thomas and Judge Alito, they seem to be okay. How come they don't have them all? Yes. So Justice Roberts definitely needs to be replaced. Alina Kagan, she definitely needs to be replaced. No, it's Amy Barrett. Okay, she's just been put in there, but Donald Trump needs to remove her. Okay, so Amy Barrett and okay, so they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so yeah, so Ketanji Jackson is Democrat. So right now, Amy Barrett and John Roberts, they need to be replaced. So it's clear right now that Donald Trump needs to replace them. He needs to find a loophole. Whatever he needs to do, he needs to retire those 2 Supreme Court justices, Justice John Roberts, who's the chief, and then Amy, she needs to be replaced, Barrett. So, but Donald Trump needs to execute his authority and retire those 2 people and have those people replaced. So that's all right now. We don't know what Amy will do, and we don't know what John Roberts will do. We just don't know. And because of that, we need to have those people out of there. But right now, regardless, Donald Trump needs to tell the Supreme Court and the district judges to go pound sand that he's going to run the country the way he sees. There's no way that they're trying to imply that Donald Trump is rogue and doesn't know the law. And all of these, it was the founding fathers never envisioned that district judges would have more authority than the president, because at least with the Supreme Court, you need to have a majority, 5 judges that that all agree that you need 5 Supreme Court judges to agree to anything to block the president. And what's happening is one rogue judge no one's ever heard of at the district level, at the state level, who's a federal judge in a local district court, is making decisions, like the lower southern half of New York or the northern half of New York, and it's always in these crazy places where this is happening. So we're at a constitutional crisis. These judges have, they're corrupt, and they've forgotten what their position really is. And now we have federal judges that now want to participate in politics, and none of these judges are appointed. Judges should not have their hands in any involvement with politics, but we're understanding now that these activist judges now are acting out their personal politics. And a lot of these people are getting bribes somehow, some way. So with that being said, we're out of here today. Thank you so much for being here. God bless you. We'll see you tomorrow.